Welcome back to another video. It's Aiden from Bespoke Coachworks here. This time we're going to be doing the twisted section on the front part of this quarter panel. So starting off like always is the paper pattern. Paper patterns are for me one of the most important things to understand the information that you're going to be putting into your panel. It's essentially the roadmap to getting to your final piece. Heaps of different people have different views on how a paper pattern should be done. For me personally, I think it's essential to put in all the correct information. I try not to overcomplicate the process. I try to keep it as simple as possible, so it's easily read. But it's still, you can't understate how important it is. So you can see down the side here where I've slit the panel, the paper. That's where the panel needs to stretch. So this is the reason why I find it so important. You could do a quick pattern and only understand the size of the piece that you need, but understanding where it needs the majority of the work is, I think, so important. So slits down the side indicating stretch. One of the tricky things about this panel in particular, because of the way that it twists, is that it actually will require shrink on the top edge towards the back of this piece, although the paper didn't really indicate it because it's quite a minute amount, but it does require some shrinking. So it was actually a part that sort of caught me off guard a little bit because the paper wasn't really showing. So but still, you could see by putting in the stretch like that, you knew that where you were going. Where the base of the reverse curve is, like through the through that inner sort of radius that's going to pop up onto the outer guard. So understanding where all that sort of stuff needs to happen is quite important, and it puts you in the right direction. I think if you were just flying blind and you didn't have that information marked out, it's going to make your panel quite difficult, and it's going to be very hard to get there without minimizing. Like, you don't want to make mistakes doing this sort of stuff. So having the information really tells you exactly where it needs to happen. So here I'm marking out the two highlight lines and how they're going to sort of blend into each other, because in this, the way that this panel works out and how it blends into the reverse curve behind it, it sort of has that one sort of tighter sort of radius, and then it sort of fans out in a tapered radius, and you'll really see it as it comes to fruition in the next in this video and the next one. But you can really see that tapered radius. So marking them out so you're understanding where they are and you're always working to that. It just keeps you heading in the right direction all the time, even though your panel might get roughed up a little bit and all that sort of thing from hammering and shrinking and stretching and all that sort of stuff. It still sends you in the right direction. Once again, like always, I like to pre-mark for aluminium. I like to pre-mark and like sort of use a scribe to split all the lines that I've indicated on the panel, because that will allow me to then transfer it over with a marker onto my aluminium without scratching up my panel too badly. So just something that I always like to do. And it just makes the next process sort of real quick and easy. You lay your paper on, you tape it down, and you just get your Sharpie line and you indicate it all through. So starting off, I'm just going to put the low amount of crown in the front section of the quarter panel, which is going to blend into the door. Reason why I'm doing this now is because once I start doing the stretching, the linear stretching on that outer edge to lift all that material up, it's going to be very difficult to blend in there with a wheel. So you want to try and get a lot of that radius in there, because from then on it's basically not going to get touched too much, besides just very sort of like real light pressure sort of blending. But you want to get your majority of your stretch in there now, because it's going to stop the panel from wanting to dance around as well. So yeah, just going back and forth. You can see before I was cross hatching. That's how I usually like to develop a low crown, and then just a little bit of wheeling the longer sort of direction. I've got a 36-inch radius in there at the moment, using very, very minimal pressure. I don't like to stretch too fast and really chase after that shape. I would rather work it in slowly. So now getting set up for the linear dies. This takes a lot of stretch along this lower edge to pull all that material up. It didn't get too thin either, so I'm going to be able to still work the material, weld it to the next piece, etc. It probably got down to about maybe 1 mil, 1.2 mil. So the panel starts off as 1.6. I'm using 5005 1.6 millimeter. So it does get down there a little bit, but not enough where it's going to cause any sort of weak points or anything like that down in the future. So you can see here I'm starting to lift my hands up and trying to sort of feed the panel in on a little bit of an angle to try and sort of flare that edge up. Just helps trying to, put a little bit of, I guess you're basically helping form the panel just by putting a little bit of pressure up on your hands, just trying to help the panel along, send it in the right direction. Important with a shape like this, particularly when you're stretching, that you're working all the material together as well. You don't want to pull one area up too much because it might sort of overstretch in that area, and the rest of the material is going to be holding the material next to it as well. So you kind of want to be ironing across the whole area that you're stretching to help pull all the material up together. A little bit different to say shrinking, where you're going in and you'll shrink one line at a time. When you're stretching, you sort of need to work the whole area. I guess when you are developing a radius shrinking, you will be individually sort of shrinking, bringing the whole panel over. But yeah, it's important, obviously, the way that your linear stretch die works, you kind of have to be moving along, ironing the panel, because it's very easy to stretch one section too much. So something to be mindful of whenever you're using a linear stretch die, that you're working more in an ironing sort of fashion, working along the panel. You can go in and out like I am right here. I sort of mix between in and out, because I find when you go in and out, you can sort of pull a little bit more pressure up on your hands. I'll sort of pull it up, going like an in and out sort of direction, and then iron back over it to sort of blend it all out. But this panel, it takes a lot. This is quite a complex curve, and you can see that it's starting to come up a lot already, but still, it just takes so much. So what I'm going to do here is trying to sort of accelerate the process a little bit, trying to sort of hammer in that reverse tapered radius, just helping also to create a little bit of extra material. So a thing that I like to do, you can see I'm really hitting it here. So what you can do is, it's hard to stretch the very outer edge into a sandbag, because just the way that it's like elastic stretching, the edge doesn't want to release as much, because it would split. So it's really holding material. So what you do is you stretch really hard inbound, and then when you move on to the power hammer to blend it all out, you work the edge, and that sort of releases all that material, and you can sort of get to your shape a lot faster by doing a little bit of elastic stretching onto a sandbag or in a stump or something like that, and then using the linear die to release all that stretch. So you can see here it's already starting to come up a lot, and the panel's starting to get that, I guess, back to front shape. But it's such a twist. This panel, like this is the transitional part, but basically once it gets welded to the rear half of the quarter panel, so the front half of the quarter panel is going to be sitting vertical, and then through over the top of the wheel arch, it will twist to basically being horizontal as it rolls through the back of the car. So quite an extreme piece. I've never twisted a piece of material like this before, but yeah, super interesting one to do. Very technical and just a lot of work. Not really. I wouldn't say it's very hard. It was challenging just because it was a lot of work and there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of stretching. But yeah, definitely a fun challenge for sure. This is where I started to get a little bit of, I guess, confusion. You can see I'm linear stretching the top edge because what I was doing was trying to emulate what I had done with the wire. And this is where wire can sometimes catch you off guard when you do the wire form. It's not, because nothing is connected to it, there's no material connected to it on either side. You're not sure really how how a panel would flow. So as I was doing this section, there was a little area where I was sort of sending myself the wrong direction by linear stretching that top edge, where really what it needed to do was shrink, and that would have pulled that material around. It wasn't till a little later on in this clip that I sort of come to that. Luckily, I didn't go too far because I still wasn't completely sold on the way that it was moving, and I knew that I still had to do some more stretching. So I was sort of more stretching on the lower edge. You can see how the front top corner has curled around, and when I noticed that it was doing that, I was like, okay, it's doing the wrong thing. So it's important to understand what your material is doing, and basically when you understand something like that, you've gone, okay, I've just stretched that edge and it's curling back up, and it's not taking the form particularly how I wanted to. You could see I'm spending a lot of time looking, sort of understanding what needed to be done, and I ended up coming to the conclusion that it needed to be shrunk to pull that material back around. So my final panel doesn't look exactly like my wire. It does twist the same, but there was an area, there's an area there where I thought it had to basically be a reverse curve a little bit further than what it actually was. When it come to the real life situation and it had material attached, it just is not possible for the material to twist in the way that I had it sort of in the wire. And I think that could have possibly been why I didn't realize that it needed to be shrink, because I guess my wire form was lying to me a little bit. Although, like I said, I didn't go too far, so it didn't, ruin the panel in any way. I just reversed it when I shrunk. I didn't do too much stretching, so I was able to pull that out quite fast. So yeah, it did catch me off guard for sure, but luckily I was able to pick it up. You can notice to this point I haven't showed it being fit on the car. It's because I hadn't gone to fit it on the car to this point. This is right now, when you're watching there, is the first time I walked over to the car to actually understand, where I was going, what I needed to do a little bit more. I had a couple of comments in the past saying that I should show more. Reason is, why I'm not showing it is usually I don't actually do a lot of trial fitting on the car. You get a fair bit of understanding. As you do more and more of this stuff, you start to understand how much a piece needs, so you don't waste a lot of time walking back and forth, checking something that just isn't going to fit yet. You can kind of have an understanding in your mind of what the panel is supposed to look like, and a lot of the time you can sort of feel where it needs to be as well. So, but I'll have taken it on board, and in future videos that I've been filming, I have been showing more on the car sort of trial fits, to sort of show you guys the difference of how the panel develops. But yeah, the reason why I don't show a lot of it is because I don't do heaps of it. I definitely do trial fit in the car. It is important, but I just don't do a lot of walking back and forth, because I try and wait until the panel's a lot closer before I start to do that stuff. So still doing a lot of like inbound sort of elastic stretching to sort of pull that edge up. Yeah, really trying to just beat it up a bit. There's just so much stretch through that section that I had to really sort of hammer that area in, relieve it on the power hammer. coming to the end of the video. Once again, thank you for watching. You can see how far that panel's come up now. So we've gone over the wheeling, all the linear stretching. In the next video, we'll start to do the shrinking and wheeling to finish it out. So once again, thank you. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, let us know your thoughts, all that sort of stuff. Always open to hearing the feedback. So cheers.